Good evening, Vancouver. Welcome back to Canucks After Dark here before dark because it's 7 p.m. on a Monday, a nice early Eastern Coast time zone show. As always, joined by my co-host, Canuck Clay. How are you doing today, Clay?
I'm great, Parker. That's a great point, actually. It is 10 p.m. on the East, in the East, and for us, we always try and accommodate each other so we can both be on the show. And tonight, this is a you night, right? You got something big tonight, sort of.
I have a hockey game at like 9 o'clock, so I got to be out of here. You know, it kind of overlaps pretty inconveniently. It's like, all right, we could do. Well, 10 o'clock won't work. We could do 8 o'clock won't work. 7 o'clock's the only time, like the closest time before, and afterwards, like, okay, I won't be home till 11. Maybe later. We're gonna do an 11:30 on a Monday night. Probably not. So
you love those late nights. I know that.
Yeah, we've bumped it back a little bit, and we do have a good chunk of things to talk about tonight because it's a little old news at this point. But free agency was 5 days ago, and we've talked about it on our own. But we haven't really condensed our thoughts and bounced back on each other on what we're thinking on a couple of these bigger deals than we maybe saw coming from the Vancouver Canucks. Before we get started, though, Clay, anything you want to bring up, mention, anywhere you want to go to start?
No, I just think it's funny. We were joking around before we press play or press record that it's only been 5 days. Today's the 18th, and free agency was the 13th. But doesn't it feel like way longer than that?
Yeah, it really
way
does.
Longer.
Yeah, it has been. It feels like it has been 3 weeks.
Yeah,
but it has
truly.
been 5 days.
Yeah, I do like how the Canucks, and I know we'll get into this. The things that they did were actually kind of pleasant surprises. Like the Kuzmenko thing was the one we knew for sure. Lazar rumored, but I don't know about you. I didn't hear any whispers of Mikheyev coming here. Any.
No, and it's one of those things where like I saw he was a free agent. I'm like, oh, I kind of like Mikheyev, and then that was it, right? That was like all that I had thought about Mikheyev coming into free agency, and then it sort of just came out of nowhere. I think it was just Friedman that said Mikheyev to Van because that's as in depth as he gets.
Yes.
And that's obviously going to be the big one we talk about. Curtis Lazar we'll talk about as well.
Yeah.
Maybe just talk a little bit. We'll talk a little bit about where this team sort of sits going into, we're basically into a new league year at this point.
Yeah.
What is ahead for this group?
Yeah, and what they have to do going forward, the fact that where they sit with the salary cap, the fact that they still only have 20 players on the roster and you need 23. So they have a bit of work to do still before they get going. But maybe we should go in order. And I guess the first thing the Canucks announced that day was Kuzmenko, the one that we actually knew was going to happen.
The technicality, yes, because technically the Canucks could not sign him. He was not a free agent until July 13th, or eligible to sign until July 13th. So they knocked that out right at 9 a.m., right when they could. But I mean, I guess there's not much there.
Not much there. Yeah, nothing we weren't shocked about, obviously. And I've seen you talk to some people in the chat. I think last week or something. I know someone was asking why it is only a 1 year for Kuzmenko. And we talked about because he turns 27, and it's either 27 years old or 7 years pro. So he becomes a UFA. But we obviously get first dibs, and hopefully he enjoys his season with us, so he can be a staple in our top 9 for years to come.
Yeah, so yeah, they're limited to the 1 year ELC, and ELC can't go past 27. And he's 26, and he has to have an ELC.
Are you worried at all, Parker, about the Fabian Brunstrom vibes? I'm not, but I've seen that comparison.
There's no downside, right?
Yeah.
Like if he sucks, then they don't have him next year, and if he's really good, I mean, then they probably don't have him next year anyways because the cap. But they're getting a shot at a decent player for free. Basically, and it was only 17 minutes after that, 9:17 a.m. on Wednesday, that Elliot Friedman said Van signs Curtis Lazar for 3 years.
Yeah,
alarm bells immediately when I see this. Right, I'm thinking, I'm like, oh no, 3 years. Oh no, 3 by 3. Oh no, they can't do this again. But it's not Jim Benning anymore. He's gone, and it is $1 million per year for 3 years.
I love it. Even take away his contract, which is the why I love it. He is what we wanted Brandon Sutter to be, a right shot centerman who can play quality bottom 6 minutes. But Lazar, I don't know if you heard his interviews. He is so articulate. He says all the right things, man. About how he grew up here. He loved Rafi Torres and Matt Cook and those guys growing
Yeah,
up.
the name drops were interesting. To go for Cook, Torres, and Rippin and Bieksa
Yes.
as just like, I mean, hey, if you can have a play style like that and actually be successful, that's not a bad group to be in.
Yeah, and I want to acknowledge So How You Doing? It's $10 donation out of the hop. Thank you, So How You Doing? We're doing great, especially with donations like that. So we appreciate that.
Thank you very much.
What I love, Parker, too, about what Lazar said is he says he's basically refined his game. He was a first round draft pick in the year Bo Horvat got drafted, and then basically figured out after a year in the AHL that he's not going to be this premium top six scorer. He's got to be a bottom six, a sandpaper guy that's going to make it hard for opponents to play against us.
Yeah, and yeah, being a 17th overall pick, 9 years ago,
Yeah.
he was supposed to be a guy who scored in his first couple of years, right? 15 points in 67 games, 20 points in 76 games. Like, looked like he could have developed into maybe a 35-point guy, and it just didn't happen because the following year he had 1 point in 33 games. And just, the nosedive there. And he's had a bit of a bounce back last couple of years in Boston, being a really decent sort of fourth line piece. Analytically, pretty mediocre offensively, but really good defensively. The old J Fresh thing has him at 98th percentile of all forwards defensively.
Wow.
At even strength. PK not as good, 22nd percentile. So definitely not excellent at PK, but 5-on-5 defense, fantastic. The last 2 years, 2021 and 21-22, were both, I think he was like 99th and then like 97th the last 2 years defensively alone.
Oh, I love when you bring the J Fresh numbers. I have no clue what they mean, but they sound really good. No, but in all seriousness, I keep hearing penalty killing. We know the Canucks can't get any worse than last year, but I'm surprised to hear that his numbers on the PK aren't as good.
Yeah, and it could just be, I mean, actually, I have no idea how they come up with these, right? Obviously, it's just percentile things, but I feel like someone who's that good defensively, maybe it's a system thing. Maybe Boston's just so used to having Patrice Bergeron out there that they don't need a good system, and their penalty killing numbers are fine. So a guy like Curtis Lazar might suffer a little bit. But we'll definitely see if he turns into, a basically free piece, right? 27 years old, 3 years at $1 million a piece.
Love it.
You look back at, 4 years ago, the fourth liner that they signed that cost $3 million a year. This is how you should fill out your bottom six, right? With guys that cost basically nothing, so you can put that money to better use at the top of your lineup.
Great point. And a player that he'll likely be replacing, and I want to acknowledge Lucas's donation of $5. Thank you, Lucas. Lazar is taking number 20 for the Canucks. Does that mean Sutter is gone? Yeah, we want Sutter overall to be healthy, hockey notwithstanding, but I do think that the writing was on the wall when he basically couldn't even practice without. It was a tough year for him last year.
Yeah,
I don't think he's back. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think he's back either. And if he was, I mean, he's worn 21 in the past anyways. But I think I think it's just I think he's just done. It's unfortunate, but not really a spot for him on the team, right? Lamico sort of earned that role, and then once Tyler Mott was off the team, Lamico suffered a little bit. Just clearly wasn't as good as he was playing with Tyler Mott. And then they thought, you know what, we can go a different direction, find a guy for basically free. And put him in the roster.
So we'll talk about all the additions together as a whole, and we talked about Kuzmenko. So this Lazar addition for $1 million per season for the next 3 years. Were you happy, Parker? Happy with
me too. It's a no-brainer, right? Because you're going to have guys in the AHL. You're going to have the sort of 13th, 14th guys trying to take that spot. Yeah, that's low enough AAV that you can just send them to the AHL if there's someone who is more worthy of that spot, right? There's that contract can be 100% sent down. If 2 years from now, that last year the contract isn't going to work, they can just send him to the AHL. He can probably tear it up down there for Abbotsford, and they can fill that role somewhere else with no cap penalty.
Yes, and Parker, you've talked about this many times before. We've talked about this notion of burying a salary in the minors. That basically means if Lazar gets sent down, he does not count. None of his money counts against the cap. despite him not being one of the 23 players that are on the roster, correct?
Right. You get cap relief of, I think it's up to, I think it's like 1.1-ish, 1.05, somewhere around there, maybe 1.2 by now. I don't know the exact number, but basically you get cap relief of up to 1 point something for everyone everyone on your 50-man roster that's in the AHL.
Right. Whereas a $2 million player gets sent down, you only get the cap relief of 1.1. That means $900,000 counts against your cap, even though he's not one of your 23 man on the roster.
Correct.
Okay, good. So that's what burying a cap means, or burying a salary. Perfect. So anyone making less than 1.1, we can do that. That's good. Although Lazar, I'm pretty sure is going to be safe. It's the other guys that we're I think talking about.
Yeah. So we want to move on from Lazar and go to the big one.
So that was 9:17, you said. Okay, so tell me when Mikheyev was.
9:52.
Oh.
So just behind the hour, 9:52 a.m. on Wednesday, Ilia Mikheyev agrees to a 4-year deal with the Canucks at $4.75 million per year.
Yeah. This one is high risk, high reward, I think. And I'm hoping for the high reward part.
Yeah, that's definitely not the hottest take. He is a player who has played 3 years in the NHL, right? Played well in Russia for a couple of years, got brought over to North America, played 3 years for Toronto. His first year, 23 points in 39 games, respectable, right? About a 50-point pace or so.
Yeah.
His second year, 17 points in 54 games, bit of a downswing, but that was the shortened season, Canada division, whatever. And then this last year, he broke out a bit, 53 games, 32 points, but 21 of those were goals. So basically on like a 30-plus goal pace in the last year. Now, I'm specifically leaving out the playoff numbers because this is where Toronto Maple Leafs fans will come back to you and say, this is why it's such an overpayment, because he has not shown up in the playoffs historically. His first year, 5 games, 0 points. His second year, 7 games, 0 points. And this last year, 7 games, 2 goals, 2 assists. But I think maybe 1 or 2 of those points were on empty netters, if I'm not mistaken. So struggling in the playoffs. Other positive, though, he likes soup.
What's that story?
I have no idea, but it is the thumbnail of today's show. Which is him in a Campbell's advertise. It's his Twitter profile picture, I think, is him eating with a spoon of Campbell's soup. So I guess he got some good sponsorship money out of that.
Yeah, good for him, more than us. Okay, so with him, yes, you said $19 million, 4.75 per year for 4 years. I don't think you can go out and say this, that he was promised top 6 minutes, but I'm pretty sure that's his understanding. And that's top 6 money. That puts him actually 6 overall behind the big three of the Lotto line and Horvat and Garland in terms of salary for the forwards. So that puts him right there.
And it's a little risky, right? He was only making $1.7 million last year. People thought he might be making around the 3 mark, but he said himself that he got offers that were higher. But he wanted to go to Vancouver. Apparently Kuzmenko had a bit of a push towards that, which is nice to see. Do we want the analytics on Ilya Mikheyev?
Yeah, I love them. Right. I'm sure people love them too. Yes.
All right. So this last year, he took off. So 1920, he was in around the 35th percentile. So not great. 2021, about 40th percentile. Okay. This last year, right around 90th percentile. In just overall.
Wow.
Wins above replacement. Now, a big chunk of that came from his finishing ability. He jumped from basically being in the bottom 20% of finishers up to the top 10% of finishers in the NHL. We'll probably see some regression there, and that's being projected out here in sort of into the future. So his projected finishing has him around like the 55th percentile, sort of middle of the pack. Even strength offense, 76th percentile. So basically borderline, top 6 player offensively. 88th percentile, even strength defensive. So that means one of the better two-way players in the game, right? Basically top 12% defensively, top 25% offensively. If he lives up to that, that's going to be a really good two-way piece. Power play struggles, 28th percentile. which I'm not too worried about, right? He's not going to be on power play 1.
Right,
He's going to be getting the last 40 seconds of the power play, maybe, if he's on that power play unit. Penalty killing 83rd percentile. So he's a really good penalty killer.
Wow.
And you have to think that's a big reason why teams want him. Just a really good two-way game and really, really fast. Really fast. There's that clip of him just going stride for stride with McDavid, although apparently with the puck, a little more iffy. But without the puck, the guy can move. And if he has that effort level where he can come back, hustle back, and especially on the penalty kill, that can be extremely valuable. Apparently he gets I think 4 of his 21 goals were shorthanded last year. Which would be, it's a really nice offensive bump, and that can really swing a game if you get a shorthanded goal, right? So
yes, and I love. Thank you for reading out those analytics, Parker, because it really highlights that with Mikheyev, we don't. Yes, the offense obviously will be nice. We always want offense, but his real production his contribution might be on the defensive end, making us harder to play against, making us easier to break the puck out, and especially on the penalty kill. I like those numbers. I like them a lot better than Lazar's numbers. I have a feeling they're going to play together, actually, but we'll see what happens. But I think it's great. I think this is, as we talked about, a high risk, high reward, but maybe his contribution will lie on the defensive end as well. But apparently he's got no hands. Like, he's got good wheels with no hands.
Well, that can be fixed a little bit, maybe, hopefully. So I'm going to go over to Dom's at the Athletics, his numbers. So he does these sort of market value calculations for each sort of aging, like all following the age curve. So his projected over the 4-year term at $4.75 million projected, he should be worth about $4.1 million per season. So slight overpay potentially, which I think in free agency is pretty reasonable. He's projecting for this next year him to be a $6 million value, then 4.3, 3.7, 2.3. In those 4 years. So in theory, this year should be his best value, obviously, because, people tend to peak around 27, 28, which is his age, and then decline a bit from there. But obviously, there's a chance that it goes the other way. It could all go terribly. It could all go well. But just some extra numbers there.
Awesome. I want to say one more thing about Mikheyev, but I want to say, Lucas, thank you for the second $5 donation. Vegas tried to rip off our Bruce There It Is chant on Twitter. I did not know that. Simply put, not cool.
They did.
Is that when they hired Bruce Cassidy, or?
Yeah, they did. They did a thing. They tweeted like Bruce There It Is or something.
What?
Silly.
These guys can't they?
Where is it? Yeah, they tweeted on July 14th at 4:30 p.m. They said Bruce There It Is. Bruce Cassidy will join our scrimmage live stream during the first intermission, they got 250 likes on that tweet. The Canucks quote tweeted it. And said, for those who may have lost track of all the transactions the last 2 days, don't worry, we did not trade Bruce There It Is to Vegas. The Canucks got 2,500 likes on that. So basically a 10x ratio, which is
that's when you use the term ratioed, right? Is that when?
Absolutely.
I'm glad it wasn't you or me getting ratioed. So thank you for bringing that up, Lucas. The other thing about KF too is, I lost it. I'm sure it was a good point, but it'll come back to me.
I'm sure it was great.
What was it? You just finished talking about analytics. Dom contract. Whatever. I'm excited.
You did your best. You did your best. That's what counts.
I tried.
Did they sign anyone else?
Yeah, they had a couple of smaller ones. They had Dakota Joshua, the big center winger from St. Louis. And he got a one-way contract, so that 2 years. So that tends to make us believe that he's going to get every opportunity to make it into the bottom six, like the NHL team, as opposed to Abbotsford.
Yeah, and he's a player that St. Louis fans love. Everything I saw on Twitter of people, like I follow a couple of people that are in sort of the St. Louis vicinity. And they were all like not stoked that he left for Vancouver. Basically a fourth line, very physical guy. I didn't know much about him. He's 6'3", 206. Had 8 points in 30 games last year. I mean, if you're getting that out of your fourth line, maybe 20 points, you're not complaining about that. Can fight, can hit. Seems like a great, again, sort of risk-free addition. And the reason, that's a good way to convince players to leave and come to your team, right? Especially these role guys like a Curtis Lazar, right? Give him some term,
Yeah.
right? You could
Yes.
say, yeah, look, Dakota Joshua, we're only going to pay you 825 grand a year. But that's whether or not you're on the main team in the minors, and we're going to do it for 2 years. So you're just locking up $1.6 million, where
Yeah.
some other team might pay you $1 million, but maybe you're out of the league next year, right? So
Yeah.
you get some security, and hopefully that goes well.
Great point. And you did mention that he isn't afraid to fight. Lazar, you wouldn't call a fighter, but he's got sandpaper. This guy's got sandpaper and he's willing to fight. So that's pretty cool. By the way, I did remember what I was going to say about Mikheyev. Do you remember when Yannick Hansen had those couple of years where he was getting so many breakaways? He was so good, but he couldn't finish. He just couldn't score. That kind of gives me the Hansen vibe, although I think Hansen was fast, but I think Mikheyev's even faster. I don't think Hansen could have kept up with Connor McDavid. But regardless, I'm interested to see what that happens. So, and then they signed the goaltender too, Delia.
Colin Delia, yes. Goalie, 28 years old, AHL goalie, had a 905 in the AHL last year, played 8 games for Chicago, had an 899. So, my Google Home's yelling at me. Yeah, so I think it's talking to me about Colin Delia from the other room.
Oh, good. Thank you. Probably knows more about him than I do.
And it has really thrown me off because it's still going. Hey, Google.
Tell him to be quiet.
Stop. All right. Sorry if that tripped any of your devices, all you guys out there. A depth piece, basically competing. I think they said they want to sort of have a 1A, 1B in Abbotsford, have a guy start 30 games, the other guy start 30 games. I think there's about 60 games. And that looks like it will be between Delia, a little more mature, good, sort of guy to maybe do some mentoring of Artur Silovs, and probably not Mikey DiPietro, but we will get to that.
Yes, we will. So that was the 5 signings: Kuzmenko, Lazar, Mikheyev, Joshua, Delia, and then after basically all the TV shows had ended and after everyone kind of did their own thing, a very small but still significant announcement that Phil DiGiuseppe coming back to the Vancouver Canucks. But I think he's 1 year, 2-way. If
probably that would make sense.
Yeah. So 6 signings overall on day 1 of free agency. Yeah. So
and then okay,
good day.
I was going to say we could also talk about the other signing they made, which was Mikey DiPietro.
Yeah.
And that was on Saturday night, 4:47 p.m. Cap Friendly tweeting out that they had signed Mikey DiPietro to a standard contract. Basically 1 year. He's going to make $840K in the NHL, which he's not going to play in. $70K in the minors, so a bit tough. Not making very much money, but he also probably won't be here anyways.
Yes, good point. Rick Dollywall, among others, but Dollywall was the first to report that the Canucks have given DiPietro's agent permission to speak to other clubs. So if the Canucks might be trying to speak to clubs, but they're not saying it doesn't have to be just us, agent, you can do it as well. Do you think DiPietro's days in Vancouver are done?
Yeah, I think so too. It looks like he's ended up being sort of the number 2 behind Silovs. At that point, there's only so much room, right? Do you want it? I mean, I think I wouldn't hate going into it with just Silovs and DiPietro, but they said their philosophy is that they want a veteran goaltender. And it's got to be, to me, I'm thinking that's for if a goalie goes down in the big club, you want probably a veteran guy to come in as the 3rd string to sit on the bench for a week, maybe, right?
Yep.
Maybe play a game or 2, instead of, bringing up Mikey DiPietro again, because historically that hasn't gone great.
Yeah, and it's too bad. He has so much pedigree. We saw what he's done nationally. He's been great for the country, the national teams. Undersized goalie who's got the heart of a lion and everything. But yeah, not the great circumstances. His first game and lack of development 2 years ago. But he had a bad season last season. And he effectively got passed on the depth chart by Silov. So maybe not the opportunity that he wants nor needs here anymore.
Yep. Hopefully he goes somewhere else and succeeds. But I mean, being a small goalie is impossible nowadays, right? Like it is just such a different game where you gotta be 6'4" if you want to be an NHL goalie, right? You gotta take up some space. He's got the athleticism, but he sort of overdoes the athleticism a little bit, it seems, and just hasn't really worked out.
Yep, and then a couple minor Christian Wolanin, I know that, and then a guy whose name I can't pronounce. The guy whose name starts with a W. Someone put it up there.
Wolanin starts with a W.
Oh yeah, it's the other guy that starts with a good point.
Canuck.
Oh no, what am I talking? I do know my alphabet, Parker. I do. This early start has thrown me off.
Wyatt Kalynuk, who is 25 years old, has played 26 NHL games, has 9 points.
Right.
And that's about it. Had 27 points in 52 games for Rockford last year as a defenseman. So maybe a little bit of upside there, but probably not. Maybe a top 4 in Abbotsford.
Exactly. Yeah.
Which is great. And then Wolanin.
Yeah.
At least Wolanin.
Yeah.
I guess he's from Quebec, which doesn't help me at all. Wait.
I think it's Wolanin. I've heard Wolanin.
Wolanin.
Yeah.
Who has played 70 NHL games. He's 27 years old. He has 20 points in those games. As a defenseman, again, pretty good, offensive numbers. Had 18 points in 37 games for the Ontario Reign this last season, and then 4 points in 5 playoff games as well for them. So again, good depth. That's what we saw them do last year. Obviously, different management group, but just load up on a bunch of really good AHL guys, which will make your AHL team good because it's unlimited money.
Right.
And then if you have things that go, you're adding more competition because, I sort of said this last year, but if you've got 5 defensemen that you really like, and I don't think the Canucks even have that, but if you have 5 defensemen that you really like and you're trying to fill that 6th spot, well, you might have a guy penciled in at 6th, and then you have maybe 6 guys who each have a 30% chance of being good. Yeah. Well, eventually a couple of those guys are going to hit and they're going to do better than that guy you had penciled in.
Right.
Like Luke Shen is a decent example of that, right? Was better than expected at times. And that's what you hope to get out of these, basically free players, right? Under $1 million that you can just have as many as you want.
The Wolanin signing screams 8th or 9th defenseman to me.
Yeah.
The first guy called up after you go through your healthy scratches in Vancouver. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So that's all the signings, I think.
So where does that leave us?
That leaves the Canucks with some players.
Well, an upgraded forward for sure. Forward group for sure.
So what do the Canucks have? Do you want to run through their roster, what it's sort of looking like now, and what holes they still need to fill?
I think it's a great idea.
I didn't want to do the work myself, so I just found Ian McIntyre's post on Twitter that he put up 5 days ago and what he had. But I don't know how outdated this is. Actually, wait, Daily Faceoff does this where they just do it for us.
Yeah, exactly.
So I go to Daily Faceoff and I go line combos for the Vancouver Canucks. All right, let's see what they have. So as of right now, first line, Lotto line. Right? Pettersson, Miller, Besser. Again, whether or not Miller's here, he's currently on the roster, so we can say that that's fine for now. Yes. Their second grouping right now is going to be Garland, Horvat, and then for me, it's either Kuzmenko or Mikheyev, right? They have Kuzmenko. I would probably lean Mikheyev just because of provenness. But again, you sort of see how training camp and preseason go and see where that ends up. Third line, Podkolzin, Dickinson, and then the other one. So whether it's Kuzmenko or Mikheyev. So let's just say Kuzmenko at this point. And then your fourth line, Pearson, Lazar, and Höglander. Yeah. Any issues with this on your end?
No. If you're going to keep the Lotto line together, which I actually don't mind, then you're going to have Dickinson and Lazar as your 3 and your 4. If you're going to split the Lotto line up, then you're really deep down the middle. You put Lazar as 4, and then you put Dickinson on the wing somewhere, and that's fine too. But no, I don't have issues. What you said was really good about Kuzmenko, Mikheyev, and Podkolzin, and Höglander. All 4 of them can actually play both wings. Like we know Besser and Garland are right wingers. We know Pearson's a left winger. But those other 4 guys, the 3 Russians and Höglander, they can all play either side. So that actually gives us some cool flexibility actually when they're trying to make some lines.
Yeah, and to me, I mean, so I see that first line, and I'm like, okay, that's a good first line in the NHL,
Yep.
right? I see the second line, Horvat, Garland, and maybe Mikheyev. I think
Yep.
that's a fine second line on a
Yep.
decent team.
Yep.
The third line, I'm not convinced by Jason Dickinson at
Yep.
all after last year. Um, I think if you have the ability to get rid of him for anything, I think that would be a good move, and then try to fill that spot. Maybe a trade of some sort. I think a third line center probably can't be that expensive, but again, who knows? And then the fourth line, I don't love having Niels Höglander down there, but I mean, where else are you going to put him, right? I think that
Yeah.
that's really the spot that he fits in at. And again, barring a Miller trade where everyone sort of shifts up a little bit.
Yeah.
But at this point, that's just sort of where it's at.
Yeah, I agree with you. And what happens if Will Lockwood has an awesome camp and he actually beats out? And then Lockwood's more of a stereotypical fourth line player. You could see a Lazar Lockwood Pearson or Lazar Lockwood Dickinson. You could see that as a fourth line too. So a lot of options for sure. But I really think of those 12 guys, presuming Miller stays, Parker, I really think Lockwood is the only one that has a chance. This is presuming Chason's gone, Richardson's gone. I think Lockwood is the 13th guy right now.
Yeah, and again, if he looks anything like he did last year in training camp, I'd be
Yep.
very happy with that as an option. The only thing I
Yeah.
don't like about having that as a 13th forward is that he's not playing games, most likely.
Good point. Yeah. Yeah.
So you'd like to maybe have a more veteran guy there.
Yeah.
But we'll see what they end up doing.
Yeah, a lot of talk about one of Dickinson, Pearson, Garland, not to mention Miller, of course, will be moved so they can help on the D. So you want to go through the D? It's not as promising on the
It's
black end.
It's a lot less of a fun conversation because I look at that forward group and I say that's a fun, good forward group, right? It's
Yeah.
maybe middle of the pack, maybe slightly upper middle of the pack.
Sure.
And that's not where the concern for this team lies. Where
Agreed.
the concern line lies is these defensive six that the Canucks have. Quinn Hughes, good start. Good
Great.
start. Love
Awesome.
that.
Awesome.
On his right, Luke Shen.
It's okay.
First number two defenseman, Luke Shen.
He's only number 2 because he has to play with the number 1.
And he wears number 2. you
Yeah,
know?
that's true too.
But do you want Luke Shen playing 21 minutes a night?
Just call him 2 Shen. Yes, that's a good point.
So there's a bit of a problem there. Oliver Ekman-Larsson and Tyler Myers.
Yes.
I think that's fine. Like, I think it scrapes by. It's acceptable. But it's not like great.
It's not great, but it's not brutal. Yeah, but they
yeah.
just make a lot of money.
And the third pairing they have here is Dermott and Poolman. I like Dermott. Don't love Poolman. But I think I dislike his contract more than I dislike Poolman, although I really don't think he was great last year.
Yeah.
And I think he'd be much more serviceable as around a number 7 than a number 6.
Give me Rathbone Dermott. That's what I want.
That would be fun. That would be scary. But it would be fun. That would be a good like offensive zone face off. Put those two guys out there, right?
Right.
But then I'd rather have Quinn Hughes out there anyways. So
Me too. Me too.
but yeah, they got some work to do here, right? And there's not many ways to get the work done. Because you have Oliver Ekman-Larsson eating up, a ton of money. You have Tyler Myers eating up a ton of money, and Tyler Myers might have been worth that money last year, but am I going to bet that he's going to be worth that money again this year?
Yeah.
Probably not. I'm a little nervous on that. I just think Shen and Poolman are guys who anywhere else in the league probably are barely in the league, right? They're probably 6-7 guys. Not guys who are going to be playing potentially 20 minutes a night. As good as Luke Shen was last year, he is your stereotypical number 6.
That right side is scary, Parker. The left side is passable with Oriel, Hughes, and if you put Dermott there on the left, it's natural to thank God he can play both sides because we might need him on the right. But yeah, if you go Shen, Myers, and Poolman as your right side guys,
it's pretty tough. And I don't, again, it's one of those things where it's like, well, at least I got Demko, right? Because he's going to solve a lot of the problems that these guys maybe bring on to the back end.
Yes. So yeah, no, you're right. So we can talk about goaltending will be a short conversation, but with the D, then if we use daily face-off of Dermott and Pullman, that means Rathbone 7, Kyle Burrows is 8, and Brady Keeper is still on our roster too on IR. So there's 9 already.
Yeah.
Wow, not great.
No, not great. um, well, they also do power play penalty kills. So let's dive into those a little bit.
Okay.
I mean, power play. You got Horvat, Pettersson, Besser, Hughes, Miller. As of right now, I think that's fine. Totally good. And I don't think there's much to say there. Second power play unit, they currently have it penciled in. Also 4 forwards, which I kind of doubt they'll do because most teams don't love 4 forwards on the second PK because usually they get stuck out there.
Right.
Back to even strength. But they have Garland, Podkolzin, Hoglander, Kuzmenko, and Ekman Larson. So no Mikheyev is sort of the notable exception, at least on their lists. Would you pencil him in here anywhere? I mean, basically replacing either Garland, Podkolzin, Hoglander, or Kuzmenko?
I would actually take off Hoglander. I'd put the 3 Russians together with Garland and see what happens. Someone's got to take the draw though, but
yeah. Well, I would also think that Kuzmenko I don't think they're doing 4 forwards. I think it's probably Ekman Larson and maybe like a Travis Dermott, or a Tyler Myers would be totally fine out there as well.
That's fair. You're right, because if there's take an example of no whistles in a power play, your second unit is wrapping up. The guys coming out of the box, and then you don't want to be stuck with
Andre Kuzmenko is your last man back, right? That's probably not ideal.
True.
Penalty kill.
Yeah.
First penalty kill unit. The 2 new guys, Lazar Mikheyev up front, and then Ekman Larson Myers. Thoughts on that as a PK?
Yeah, actually, I truly think because there's no chemistry issues that you have to worry about from last season on a penalty kill that was on track to be the worst in history. Thankfully, they got a bit better with the now departed Brad Shaw. Departed as in left the team, not anything bad happened to him. Why not put these 2 guys together, see what happens. Fine
sure.
with me. Yep.
Second penalty kill unit, they have Dickinson with Pearson as the 2 forwards. Looking at the list, I don't think I'd change that unless you want to put Pettersson out there. But then you're probably taking ice time away from Pettersson at other times too. I think Miller's killed some penalties too, right?
Yeah. How about Kuzmenko? Can he kill penalties?
No idea. Do they kill penalties in Russia?
It's funny. I was thinking about this. I don't know anything about Kuzmenko.
Neither do I. I saw his numbers. He looked good.
Glad we got him.
Yeah, and Dexter here says that Pettersson needs a penalty kill, but I mean, the thing is, there's a reason that lots of the top teams don't have their top guys penalty killing, right? Unless there's superior exceptions, right? Like a Patrice Bergeron. And the problem is, if you have them out there, let's say you take 3-4 penalties. Let's say you take 4 penalties a night, maybe 3, maybe 4, and they're playing half of that time, so maybe an extra 3 or 4 minutes. If Pettersson's going to play 19 minutes in a night, do you want that to be like 15 even strength 4 power play, or 12 even strength 4 power play 3 penalty kill, right? You're taking away valuable minutes of your best player being out there potentially. And that's why some teams don't love to put their best players on the penalty kill.
So I understand that, and I hear what you're saying, Parker. I know Boudreaux would counter with the skill guys often anticipate, they think offensively, so they're able to jump the gap and things, but it's rare, but maybe there's a counterpoint there. Who knows?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I don't disagree. I think it is a lot better for your penalty kill to have a guy like Pettersson out there. Mm-hmm. It's just also taking ice time away from Pettersson and scoring opportunities, right?
Yes. Yes.
So it is some give and take, and you really have to sort of balance, because if Curtis Lazar is going to, or let's say Jason Dickinson's going to play 12 minutes in a night, you'd probably rather those be on the penalty kill than
give them all penalty killing minutes
on an offensive zone start, right?
Yeah, for sure. Okay,
all right,
that's fine. And then goaltending, easy. We already know.
Thatcher Demko, decent goalie, probably top 10 goalie. Fine with that. Spencer Martin was really, really good last year, and I'm really nervous about it.
Are you?
it was such an anomaly, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
he's been good in the AHL, right? The previous year he was like a 907 in the AHL. He had an 897 year though, a 902, 893. Like he hasn't always been great. And then he comes here and he puts up a 914 in the AHL. In the playoffs, 2 playoff games, but he put a 938 in those. And then he plays 6 games for the Canucks, doesn't lose any of them in regulation, and
That's
puts up
crazy.
a 950, which is absurd with a 1.74 goals against average. My fear is, we're going to be putting 25 games on this guy, right? Based on really a 6-game sample size from his NHL tenure this year. And 25 games in the AHL, which were good to be an NHL backup. But again, it's 25 games out of a 150 game career.
Yes. Every single thing you said is true, Parker. I look at it, and I know you are hopeful though that it does work out, because can you imagine only 7% of our total cap in our goaltending, and if we can get top 10 goaltending in the league, that's outplaying your contract.
Imagine Spencer Martin starts 28 games and puts up a 950 again. The Canucks just win 26 of them at that point, right? Like,
yeah. Then they're not going to trade JT Miller because they're going to be top 2 in the Pacific, and
then they're going to lose in the first round, and then Miller goes away for nothing.
I know.
We'll see. We'll see. All right, we're at the 40-minute mark, and we hit everything that was in the title, which is the crucial part. So do you want to go to some fan questions, or any other topics that you wanted to touch on first?
Okay, can we talk about the Calgary Flames for 5 minutes, and then we go to fan questions?
Okay. We get to bask in the pain of the Calgary Flames? Absolutely.
So there's something that actually happened today, but let's get to Johnny Gaudreau first. He leaves Calgary despite their best efforts to re-sign him, and goes to the highly vaunted Columbus Blue Jackets.
They always say whenever you want to go to the big city, whenever someone says, I want to go to America, where do I want to go? Top answer is always Columbus, Ohio.
Exactly.
Right next to like Salt Lake City, Utah. My two tourist destinations. A ton of money turned down here too, right? We're talking tens of millions of dollars in difference between the contract that Calgary offered and the contract that Columbus offered. Apparently some other offers were on the table. I think New Jersey had something on the table. Apparently Philadelphia didn't.
Yes.
Which was quite surprising. Chuck Fletcher is getting raked over the coals a little bit for that one. He was like, we would have had to do so much stuff if we were trying to sign him. Like, we would have to move guys around.
Tough life.
Yeah. So they decide not to go for Gaudreau, and Columbus gets a 99-point guy for less money than he was going to take in Calgary.
Wow. So
what's your thought on the loyalty side of it? Because there was a lot of people, especially Calgarians, who were saying, wow, this team's done so much for you. They offered you so much money, and you don't decline it until after the start of free agency, basically, when now they have, or right at the start of free agency, where now they have less flexibility to make moves. What's your take on that?
Just before you got to that last sentence, Parker, I was actually going to say, as much as it would pay me if, like, say, a Bo or someone in this situation left, I would think that I'm mature enough to realize there's a reason why. Obviously, it's not the money. There's a reason why he wanted to make this move. But so in a vacuum, I would generally say the players earn the right to go wherever they want. But you're right. There is a way to do it from a standpoint of stating your intentions, not hamstringing your team. I actually never even thought about that angle. Is that why Calgary fans are mad, or are Calgary fans mad simply because he left
It's
them?
mostly that last part, that it was so short notice. They weren't able to get anything for him. They weren't able to maybe make plans around it.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, and I try to be very neutral in the way I explain that. But if you think about it from the standpoint of a newly drafted, or of a freshly drafted NHL player, Gaudreau's played in the league, 8-9 years?
Yeah.
And he has never had a say in where he's played. He got picked out of a lottery, basically. He got he had no right to choose where he was going to play, unless he demanded a trade, but that's a different story. And now he finally gets a chance at freedom, and he does it by going to Columbus, which is so funny. And to me, I'm so for it, right? Like I think you have and again, and if it was someone like Bo Horvat and things like that, I would have been more frustrated with management over not getting something either locked in sooner or try to work around it like suit right, like expedite the process. If he's unsure, give him a deadline. Say like, all right, you got to lock this in the next 3 days because we have to make our plan for the off season. Right. Otherwise, we're just going to assume you're going elsewhere. And that's one of those things where it's just he hit his right to free agency. Yep. He hit his right to go get paid, and he could have got paid way more, but he earned his right to go where he wanted to. And if that is a smaller market team where he's not going to get recognized at the local Subway, then it's, that's every right. He has every right to do so.
Tiger would agree with you. Frankly, Gaudreau was a free agent. It's his choice. He doesn't owe the team, city, or fans anything. He gets to choose his own path for the first time in his pro career. Okay, so let's say even Calgary weathermen are threatening to leave to go to Columbus.
Oh, that was okay. I just want to mention that because that news, the Calgary newscaster. Yeah. People are like, "Oh, he's so salty." It was hilarious. You kidding me? Like his delivery was great. It was the perfect amount of snark, and the Columbus news station firing back also in a really funny way with the big paycheck that said way less. Like there was like a little salt, sure, but it was just good content.
We need more of that.
Yeah, it's great.
Okay, so not to be outdone or not to get off easy or whatever it is, today we find out that Calgary has filed salary arbitration with Matthew Tkachuk to avoid him from being offer sheeted by other teams, which is fine. That makes sense. But the fact is that they're at this point, a potentially contentious point with their other superstar. What a disaster.
Yeah. And the thing is, I didn't even see this yet.
Oh,
so I didn't realize we were that close to this.
Yeah.
Because Matthew Tkachuk's an RFA.
Yeah. Can you pull up the Calgary Flames tweet? Just read it. You'll think it's hilarious. The way they explain it.
I'm assuming this is theirs. They said, quote, "The Flames have filed for club-elected salary arbitration with Matthew Tkachuk. This provides us the opportunity to continue to work with his representatives towards a contractual resolution while removing the possibility of an offer sheet." So a little bit skewed wording, right? Saying like, hey, this is all good. Not to mention the fact that if they go to salary arbitration and he gets awarded a 1-year deal, that he is an unrestricted free agent after that, I believe.
So do you remember, without looking it up, Parker, do you know how much he made, or do you even looking it up?
I think his kilo was like $9 million, right?
You got it. So we were freaking out. Like, now Kachuk's a bit better than Besser, but we were freaking out about 7.5 for Besser. Try $9 million for Tkachuk.
And he's worth it. He's a really good player.
And they have a lot of money now that they're not paying to Gaudreau.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I'm going to read some arbitration things.
I'm excited.
So the player and club can settle on a deal at any point prior to the hearing. So that's fine. Once the hearing's taken place, the arbitration decision must be issued within 48 hours.
Yep.
Arbitration awards can only be 1 or 2 years. The party who did not elect for arbitration decides on the awarded term. Therefore, it is club elected arbitration, which means the arbiter will decide the number. Matthew Tkachuk decides whether it's 1 or 2 years.
He's
so
picking
he can
one.
Say, "I'll take my 1 year, please, and I'll be an unrestricted free agent where I'm going to go make $12 million next year."
Yep.
If you're in your final year of RFA, you can only do the 1-year term. That's fine. A club cannot walk away from club-elected arbitration settlement. Only player elected arbitration, the club can walk away if it's like a certain number. It's like above $4.5 million. But basically, since club elected, it's Matt Tkachuk's going to get a number. He's going to choose whether it's 1 or 2 years, most likely 1. And then they will have to work tooth and nail over the next year to have him locked up before free agency.
Parker, I've speculated, and I haven't heard this from anyone, but one of my thoughts was that there's some locker room problems in Calgary. Because do you remember when Tkachuk was doing his things with Cassian and doing a couple of things, And there's one thing, I think someone either shot a puck at him or he shot a puck at someone, and none of his teammates came over to kind of defend him. Do you remember that?
Vaguely.
Yeah. So I kind of wonder if there was an issue with Kachuk and Goudreau, or maybe simply there's an issue in the leadership in the locker room, or maybe none of that's true. It's simply the way of business. But it's just, imagine if this was happening in Vancouver, it would be a complete. I'm sure it's a tire fire in Calgary right now.
Yeah, and keep in mind, Matthew Tkachuk had 104 points last year, 42 goals.
Yeah.
Right? Do you think that arbitration number is going to be less than $9 million?
No, how many guys had 42 goals last year? Like 3?
Not
4?
a lot, right?
Yeah,
Maybe like a handful, right?
Yeah.
So I think he'll have pretty good say. Like he'll have a pretty good argument towards.
Yep.
I'm sure they're walking into the room with $13 million on a piece of paper, and Calgary's going to walk in with $5 million on a piece of paper, and they're going to be like, all right, we'll meet in the middle at 11, right? And it's good. And they're going to.
Can you imagine if Calgary comes in, you're worth 5?
Yeah. And, they'll get laughed out of the room, but that's what teams do, right? They really undersell. And obviously arbitration is pretty much never good for morale, right? It always causes argument between the two sides, and usually isn't ideal. So, do we know when his hearing is yet? Has that been?
No, they're usually. I thought they're mid to late, but maybe not. Oh, by the way, I was completely off. 8 guys had more than 42 goals this season, which is quite impressive.
Name some of them.
Matthews, Draisaitl, Kreider.
So Matthews makes 12.
Yeah,
ish. Draisaitl makes 8.5.
Kreider,
maybe 7 or 8.
Ovi. He's 9 or 10, right?
Oh, he's 9 or 10, but he's special.
Kaprizov's
8, I think.
Kyle Connor,
who didn't have a contract anymore.
And then McDavid and Duchesne.
So McDavid's obviously 12.5, and then Duchesne, I think, is like... Wait, Duchesne was good this year?
He had 43 goals, man. 43 goals.
I thought Duchesne was washed up. Oh, because he had 6 goals last year. And then he had 43 this year. What happened? That's crazy. Wasn't even a contract year.
But yes, your point being, I don't think.
But
people are
Duchesne makes $8 million a year as well.
Okay. I don't know, man. This is gonna be interesting.
Yeah. It is. That's absolutely crazy. Because he is such a special player. You think Daryl Sutter has anything to do with this?
Meaning,
well, Goudreau gone, Tkachuk gone, locker room rifts potentially.
Never thought. I never thought that way, actually.
He doesn't seem like he'd be that fun to play for.
No.
They played good, but the New England Patriots played good, and there were a lot of people who didn't like playing there either, right?
Right. Yeah, disappointing playoffs. Well, we'll see. And I'm not. I've told you many times, Parker, and people know that Calgary, I don't hate them, but they are my least favorite team in the entire league. So I'm not smirking, or I'm not wishing ill will, but I do find it slightly comical.
Yeah, it's slightly. And it's good for the Canucks, right?
Oh, yeah.
Talking about, Calgary won the division last year, didn't they?
Yeah. They kicked everyone's butt.
So if we're looking at the Calgary Flames, who had 111 points last year, right? What is losing Goudreau and losing maybe Tkachuk, or if they have Tkachuk for one more year, what does that do to a team, right? Morale wise, they might be that's 200 points off the table potentially. 80 goals just gone, right? and you think about it, they only scored 293 goals last year, right? You got to make that's a quarter of their goals basically. So it's they're gonna have to make some moves if they're gonna want to pull something together here.
Some people are, and with Vegas being Vegas and losing Pacioretty basically for nothing and blah blah blah. Some people are pegging Edmonton, LA, Vancouver as potentially top 3, fighting with Vegas and Calgary for that 3rd spot. We'll see.
Yeah, it's so tight. And I think I saw some standings projections again, just based off of moves that had been made. Again, this is a JFresh one. That has Vegas at 107, Calgary at 103, Vancouver at 96 as the top 3. Edmonton at 93. LA at 89, San Jose 83, Seattle 82, Anaheim 72. What that tells you is, man, the Pacific Division's bad. compared to some of these other divisions. But, obviously this is one projection and doesn't mean a ton, but the Pacific Division, and as Lucas is saying, Pacific Division got weaker after day one of free agency. And thank you again for the super chat.
Well, I'm surprised Jay Fresh has Vegas actually going up in points. That's crazy.
Yeah, and it must be. Well, I mean, you look at their roster, right, and all the injuries they had last year, right? Because these are all based on the players that are on the team, not how they really performed. But they still have Eichel and Stone. And I think that might have been that was the 12th. Was that before free agency that I just read that off of? That's really dumb. Then
that'd be weird.
Either way, though, that would be before Pacioretty got dealt for nothing. Which is also
I thought Jay Fresh did a new one after free agency.
Probably. It's probably just not the one that got put at the top of my list.
Okay.
No, he did it on the 12th.
Okay, awesome.
Well, that was dumb then. Ignore everything I said.
Funny. Okay, that's fine.
Yeah. So how you doing? Thank you for joining as a member, by the way.
Yeah,
appreciate it.
That's awesome.
All right. Where else do you want to go here?
Well, you tell me. You got the big playoff game.
Well, we got 5 minutes left here. So you want to take some cues?
Yeah, let's do that.
All right. Get your cues in quick.
Yeah.
I'm going to scroll up a bit and see if I missed any because I didn't really look.
Me too.
As we were going. I've already scrolled up 20 minutes here.
Oh, let's go, Dexter. He just put it. What are your guys' thoughts on Patan, Rempel, Hunt, and Highmore leaving? Go for it.
I liked Rempel just because he got a lot of assists in the AHL, but again, I think he was just going to be an AHL piece. Brad Hunt was fine, but again, very replaceable. Nick Patan, same deal. Nick Patan's like the certified between an AHL and NHL guy, where he's a little too good for the AHL, not good enough for the NHL. So, he probably wants to go somewhere where he can at least have an audition. Highmore's the one, a little tougher. I thought he was pretty good. Again, those three played well together, Mott, Lamco, Highmore. But again, as Mott left, the other two suffered. So you have to wonder, how much of an impact of that was Tyler Mott compared to the play of Lamco and Highmore. And with them getting rid of, seemingly both Lamco and Highmore and just completely revamping your fourth line, I'm totally fine with it because I think your fourth line is by definition replaceable. To the point where you should be getting guys who are fourth liners that might have a little bit of upside. And that's sort of the route they seem to be going, with a Lazar, for example.
And you could argue we brought in Lazar, Kuzmenko, and Mikheyev for Chason, Richardson, Highmore, Lamico, and whoever else. I'll take that. I'll take that for sure. I like this one. So Justin's asking me, Pierre-Luc Dubois, since the Jets are one of my favorite teams. Yeah, a lot of scuttlebutt about him getting moved.
Yeah, apparently he was at the draft in Montreal because he was convinced he was going to get traded to Montreal on the draft floor. So he was just in the stands at the draft ready to, I don't know why, right? He's going to come down to the stage in a Habs jersey as if he just got drafted. Probably not, but I guess he could sit at the table with them, maybe announce a 7th round pick or something.
Right.
There's his name is getting floated about. They did not file for arbitration with Dubois, which basically means they got to hit the QO, right?
Yes. It's interesting about Dubois too, because he was picked 3rd overall in 2016, 2 picks ahead of one Ilya Mikheyev and 3 picks ahead of one Matthew Tkachuk. So we'll see what happens with Dubois. Yeah, I guess that makes sense because all these guys have done their 3+3. They're going into their 3rd contract now.
Yep. It's crazy. That was 6 years ago.
It's nuts. It's nuts. What else?
Matt asks, who will have the most points on the team next year?
I don't know if I want to give away my thing. No, I'm just kidding. For our next round of bets, I think it's going to be PD. I really do.
Yeah, I think that's a decent bet. I'm not going to take it though.
Okay.
I'm going to take Quinn Hughes.
Wow, bold.
I'm saying 85 points for Quinn Hughes this year.
I love it. I love it.
How many
Oh,
points do you have this year? Like 60 something, 68?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, 85
Oh,
is not that crazy.
you got to answer this one, Dexter. Thoughts on David Perron to Detroit, Parker? He puts the googly eyes because he has googly eyes. And Dexter also asked me this on my stream last night because he knows that I know he hates Perron. So
I don't like David Perron either, very much. I think Detroit got a steal though.
Yeah.
They got a guy who is, just under like 3/4 of a point per game his entire career. Right. I mean, last year, 57.67 games, the previous year is a point per game. So he's always around that 60-point mark. They get him for under $5 million a year for 2 years.
Yep.
No real downside there. He's aging out, but for Detroit, where they're sort of, trying to make a bit of that push towards relevance again. Obviously 74 points last year, not great, but they have so many good guys coming up, right? Whether it's Raymond or Sider especially, where if those guys take a step and they get some good goaltending and they get David Perron in there, whether it's just as a good mentorship or maybe it gets them an extra handful of points and gets them a little bit closer to the playoffs, that could be good for them.
I really like what Detroit did between Perron and Kubelik and Andrew Kopp. Like those are three guys that I would, maybe not Perron, but I'd take those guys on my team for sure. I think they did really well.
And it is 8:00, which means I do need to get going.
You do.
Folks, much appreciated. Thank you all for joining tonight. I'd leave you with Clay for a little bit, but he doesn't know how to work this. So he doesn't know how to end the show. Because he still hasn't set up the account that I sent him a year ago. That's okay. That's okay. I'll do it all. Hope you guys all had a good night with us. Exactly. We got a good thing going. We do appreciate you all joining. If you missed any part, you can rewind back to the beginning. I know we did a little earlier tonight. It'll also be on your favorite podcast platform within a matter of 10-15 minutes or so, whenever that takes to upload. Clay, any parting words for this evening?
Well, the JT Miller watch continues, and we will see what happens. I'm out of town next week. You and I will figure that out later, and everyone stay tuned as to when our next show will be for sure.
It'll probably be a pretty last-minute decision. So keep your eyes peeled. Make sure you subscribe and hit the bell so you get those notifications. And if you miss it, just find it on your favorite podcast platform. As always, have a good night, everyone. We will see you